Hi everyone, and welcome to a new vlog. I haven't filmed many vlogs apart from reading vlogs. I've only filmed one, mostly because I've been spending so much time with my friends and my roommates, and I haven't taken the habit to take my camera with me, so I haven't been able to film a lot outside. And then that is probably a consequence of the fact that I haven't told my friends or my roommates that I make videos on the internet. So it's been a bit harder to film, but I just spent most of the day outside. Today is Saturday, February 14th. It was a beautiful day here in London, so I took advantage of that and went reading at the bookstore this morning, and then went and had a nice walk around in the afternoon, and then I went to read a bit more at the park. As for what I'm reading, I'm currently making my way through Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I'm at the end. I have 20 pages left in the book. I've been really loving it, and the act of reading it alongside my roommate has been so much nicer. I started it last weekend and I read about 50 pages then, and then I put a pause on it because I tend to read faster than her, but she was flying through it, and so the schedule that we'd set for our buddy read was scratched, and we were hoping on finishing it by the end of this week, so I've just been binging it. It's so fascinating, and now that I've been reading it, I don't know how I will feel about the movie because I have this piece in my head and I don't know if I'll truly be able to separate both, but I'm still really curious to see what is made of the movie. But yeah, I've been really liking it. It's such a fun and gripping read. I am about to finish it right now, and then I'm going to be doing some work. Tomorrow is back to good old London weather, which means it's going to be quite gloomy, raining all day. But next week I am going to France for a few days, 5 days to be exact. So I'm just going to bring you on my next few days until I leave to France, because I fear that just this weekend will not be enough. Also, I got a matcha because last week with my roommate, again, I do a lot of things with her. She had her friend over and we went to Borough Market and we had a matcha there, and I hadn't had a matcha in almost a year because I used to make it at home a lot and I kind of grew tired of the taste, but Genki Matcha make a salted vanilla matcha, which is my new discovery, and it's so yummy. It's really salty, but it has the aftertaste of sweet vanilla, and it's just been delightful. So I really wanted to get another one today. I treated myself to that. Okay, I've been speaking way too much, so I'm gonna go read, but welcome to the vlog. Hey guys, today is Monday. I've set the camera down because I'm going to be chatting. It's actually kind of gloomy outside right now, but it is supposed to be sunny again in a few hours. Right now it's about 1 and apparently it's going to be sunny by 3, so I'm waiting for the sun to come back so I can go on a walk. In the meantime, we're going to be chatting about books. Before I get started, I know that my nail is really distracting. I'm getting it done on Wednesday, so it's going to be a fresh set. I'm really annoyed with this one. It broke quite literally a week after I got the set, which was really unfortunate, but thankfully I'm getting them done soon. They're also really grown out, so yeah. Anyway, books. I finished reading Wuthering Heights on Saturday right after I stopped talking to you guys, if I'm honest, and I really loved it. I thought it was such a powerful exploration of very varied subjects, including class, race, and the cyclical aspect of trauma. I'm not going to go too much into it because this was not a reading vlog, and I will save my thoughts for either when I watch the movie, if I'm filming a vlog then, or for my February wrap-up. So overall, just really loved it. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, which kind of brings me into a nice segue. I went back on Goodreads and rated my favorite books 5 stars. Not all-time favorites, but just books that I really, really love, 5 stars. So my 5-star books anyway, because that's the only rating that I feel comfortable enough to give. If you follow me on Goodreads, you know that I don't tend to rate books. I stopped doing that because it was really difficult for me to assign ratings to books because it really essentializes my thoughts, and I don't think it's necessarily an accurate representation of how I feel, but I do think that with a 5-star, it shows you just if I really loved a book or not, or if it's a favorite. So I feel okay with giving 5 stars to books, but not anything else. Another of my read that I started Saturday as well is Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. This is an essay collection and it has 15 essays, which is why I started it on Saturday, because I want to read an essay a day until February is over. Audre Lorde is one of my favorite writers, activist in the feminist space. I think she's a brilliant writer, and I also really, really adhere to her ideas. So far, I've read the first 3 essays in this collection. My favorite one was the second so far, but again, I will talk about my favorites a bit more in depth in my February wrap-up. However, I do like that I am reading 1 essay a day, but I do already sense a very reoccurring idea of the themes, and I do feel like if I'd done this in a smarter way, I would have started on the 1st of February and I would have done it really sporadically throughout the month, because a lot of the ideas presented could be redundant. However, I love her writing so much that everything she says, I'm still like, yes, agree. But I don't think this is one to read in one sitting, because otherwise you get really bored, which is sometimes how I feel reading academic texts that are like 30 pages and that repeat the same idea over and over again. But such is academic adjacent writing sometimes. And then finally, what I started today, as you saw, is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. In my list of books to read this year, I put Sula down because a lot of people said to start with Sula, but then I found out that The Bluest Eye was her first book, and so I bought The Bluest Eye in the end of last year, and I'm happy that I did because I could not have been buying it this year anyway from my book buying rule for the year to reduce my consumption of books, because I have a really, really, really large TBR. Anyway, I'm happy that I'm starting with this one because it is her debut, and I think it's a nice introduction to Toni Morrison, but so far I'm really, really early in. I'm at page 36, so really I've only read the first 2 chapters. However, this book is really making me realize something, and I think it's also from Wuthering Heights, and it's that I think I've told you guys my reading goal for the year was 52 books, which is 1 book a week. However, upon reflecting and as I was reading these books, I realized that sometimes I will not force myself necessarily, but push myself a little bit to read more than I would want to so that I could finish more books in the month. I'm not going to pretend that every time that I read 8 books a month, it's because I was forcing myself, because that's not the case. Most of the time, if I do end up reading a lot in a month, I'm not forcing myself, or not a lot, but more than I usually would. However, recently, and I think I've realized this through the books that I've been reading, and specifically when reading The Bluest Eye, because in my head, I thought I need to finish this before going to France, so that when I'm in France, I can read another book, so that I can have read 6 books this month or something. I don't know. And I was thinking about that, and it really made me realize that I kind of want to slow down. Not because I don't enjoy reading, I really do, and it's my biggest hobby, and in fact, when I don't get to read as much as I want to, I get stressed out and I get overwhelmed, because it's also a way for me to recalibrate or refocus. When I am overwhelmed, I will turn to reading because it really helps me recenter. But through the books that I've been reading, I have been realizing that I've been really reading them back to back, and that's not a problem. I'd like to start a book right after I finish one, because otherwise I can go for days without reading anything just from being overwhelmed about the choices. But I've been setting these strict goals in my head of how much I need to read in a day that I want to scratch, because it's been A, more stressful, and B, it's kind of taken some of the joy out of reading. And also, I think there's a lot of process of reading, and especially with the books that I've been reading recently, there's a lot of thinking and enjoyment that I take in when I'm not reading and I'm just thinking about the themes of the book. And I realized this also when I was reading Wuthering Heights, because it was so enjoyable to talk about it and to take it a little bit at a time, because then it makes me think about the themes more, and it makes me think about the story more, and I end up remembering a lot more of the story and taking much more out of it than I do when I read a book in 2 days. Unless it's a really short book, of course. But anyway, my point is, I feel like I've been somewhat stressing myself out with reading, and I kind of want to take that out of the equation. However, I also am not the type of person who loves taking weeks and weeks on a book. I like to read them in the span of a week or a week and a half max, because when I take too long, then I just stop being invested in the story. So there's a fine line, but I've just been falling on the more faster side of it than the slower side, and I really want to go back into the slower side. So point is, I'm not forcing myself to finish this before I go to France. I also really want to take my time, because Toni Morrison, A, is a really good writer, as I'm coming to realize, but B, explores a lot of very deep themes that need and require to think about more. And that was kind of what I was thinking about reading. I am seeing that it is getting brighter, so hopefully the sun comes back and there is no threat of rain later, and I will go on a walk then. Hey guys, today is Tuesday. I am just back from class. I had class today until 1 p.m. I wasn't supposed to have class because it's our reading week, but today was optional and I decided to go, and it was a very, very nice class, so I'm happy I went. I've just made myself it looks like it's hot, but it's an iced coffee with 1 ice cube specifically and oat milk. But I kind of wanted to chat with you guys about a few things that I have implemented since the beginning of the year, which in some ways are resolutions, but in many ways are just habits that I really want to implement. And to start off is a little challenge that my roommate and I have set for each other this month, and that is no sugar. We do allow ourselves to have dark chocolate in the sweet area because neither her nor I really like dark chocolate that much, and it does have a lot of properties that are good for you. So we've both been buying mostly 72% or 75%, and the transition hasn't been bad at all. And I think also part of the reason is we're allowed to have fruits, we're allowed to have, oatmeal. For instance, I've been having a lot of oatmeal, wherein sometimes I'll put a dash of honey, but I don't mind my oatmeal not being sweet. So far it hasn't been too hard. Really, I'm about halfway through the month, a little over halfway actually. And there are times where it's harder when I see a pastry right in front of my face, but mostly it's been okay. But yeah, we just wanted to set a challenge, and I think I'm finally in a position where I feel okay with food to not feel like this is going to have dire consequences. So that's nice, and it's just been fun to motivate each other. And along that vein, we are allowed to have 1 sweet drink a week. That's not Coke or lemonades or anything like that. It's mostly coffee with a syrup inside, or the matcha that I had last week. That is included in our little challenge, because our goal was not to really create this really strict thing, but to kind of reduce our consumption of sweets, sugar in general, because it's really easy to end almost every meal on a sweet note. So that's just been kind of fun, but that's not really what I wanted to talk about. The thing that I mainly wanted to talk to you guys about is I have severely reduced my screen time, and partly because, and I'll explain everything I'm doing around that and why, although I think the reason is pretty straightforward. For instance, right now this week my average is 2 hours and 2 minutes. Yesterday I spent 2 hours and 45 minutes. I think it was the beginning of the year where I was in Paris and I was alone. I didn't have many things planned, and I was just spending so much time on my phone. I'm not someone who really tends to spend so much time on my phone, but it's really easy to scroll, especially with TikTok and Instagram and all of that. So my roommate and I, who both wanted to reduce our screen times, partly because we wanted to gain more attention span, and partly because neither her nor I really enjoyed going on social media that much. So we've set passwords for both of us on our phones so that we can't access our social media. And for me, that is 13 minutes a day on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. And then my phone is on lockdown from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. That was partly so that I wouldn't go on my phone first thing in the morning, although I completely honestly still do that. But I can't do much on it, so I'll spend like 5 minutes looking at some random thing that I have access to, like my notes app or something, and then I have to move on because I can't access my social media. And that's honestly been really nice. And you'd think that going to lose the opportunity to speak to your friends or to text your friends, and that's really not the case, at least for me, because A, I have enough time to reply, and most of what I do on these apps is not replying to my friends, it's scrolling, and B, I can text them on my messages, which are always accessible. But then another reason, and something that was really shocking to me, was I saw this interview with the guy who was talking about calculating the time you're spending on your phone and your average lifespan, and I was at around 4 hours, let's say. I did the average thing, and it said that I would spend about 15 years of my life on my phone, and I just thought that that was not acceptable. And it also prevents me from doing other things that I really enjoy doing, and it prevents you from being really present when you talk to someone, and I feel like I'm gaining a lot of that presence back. It is still really early to say if it's really impactful, if I'm honest, because it's not in a little bit over a month that I can judge that, but so far I've not been finding really hard. And then another thing that this guy was saying was, try to think of the last video you saw on TikTok, what it was about. And I'd probably been on TikTok 10 minutes before I was watching that video, and I could not tell you. And that was really shocking, because it really goes to show how much information you're not really taking in. And then the last reason for me why I really wanted to reduce this is that there was a lot of times where I found myself picking my phone up to avoid being social, or to create a barrier between me and the social world. And by that I mean, like, I could be walking somewhere, and if I am just walking around and there's a lot of people, I get kind of socially anxious, and so I pick up my phone and I do nothing on it so that I can look like I'm busy, which is a crazy thing to do. Same thing when I'm waiting for something, or like waiting to go into class and I don't see my friends, I don't see anyone to talk to, pick my phone up, which is just really sad. That's just kind of something that I really wanted to talk to you guys about, because it's just been really enjoyable, and I know that it's a struggle that a lot of people go through. And although I've never really been attached to my phone, it's been nice not to be able to go on it. And now when I do go on it, I am almost never on my social media. I never max out on my 13 minutes anymore. You get like a 5-minute left reminder thing, and at that point I just kind of stop going. And it's just really reduced my consumption of social media, and so when I go on my phone, it feels like I'm being more productive. But that also does have one negative impact, and is that I've been posting less on TikTok, even though I kind of started, because I barely have access to it. And so I've just been having a harder time to try and film and post and edit, and I had to like recalibrate and start filming on my normal camera and start editing on my computer and then post it back on TikTok. And that's just been taking a bit more effort, but I'm hopefully going to try and keep doing a bit more TikToks. I don't think it's my favorite social media platform anyway. I'm a YouTube girl at heart. I will always be, because I love long form content. I love to hear people speak for a long time, and I love that I'm able to choose what I'm going to be watching. But yeah, now I'm going to be cleaning my room. I need to vacuum yet again. I'm going to do my yoga of the day. I feel really proud of myself this year in terms of being healthier. I'm gonna stop for now. I'm gonna do my chores, and then I will read some of The Bluest Eye. And I don't think I'm going to speak much tomorrow, so let me just give you a really quick rundown of the things that I have planned. I have my nail appointment in the morning at 10, then I have an oral assessment at 1:15, and then my train is at 8 p.m, but I need to be there at like 7. And in the meantime, I will be packing and cleaning yet again. Yeah, that's it.